Sammy was just about 6 years old when he found the hole in the back of the school grounds. It seemed like a tempting place to explore. Sammy started to haul away at all the bushes that covered the hole. As the school bell rung out for the return to class, Sammy jumped down the hole, and to his surprise and excitement, Sammy found himself on a giant slide heading down from the school ground. Deeper and deeper Sammy slid down the ramp. He was screaming as he turned around and around, twisting and twirling. Sammy sped down and down, faster and faster with every second that passed. Down he went, faster and faster, until he hit the ground with a thud. After he shed some light on the subject, Sammy found a light switch and turned it on and couldn't believe his eyes. To his amazement, Sammy had discovered he was in a very wonderful place. He had found a world far beneath the ground, a secret place where the birds were singing Sammy's favourite songs as he walked along the soft, spongy road towards the sound of a bubbling brook. He paused on the road before the gushing, rushing, flowing stream and helped himself to all of the wonders around him. The trees had licorice and chocolate bars hanging from the branches. All the flowers were made of honeycomb, and the stones tasted like marshmallow jelly. Large rocks around were like peppermint, and the twigs tasted like fudge. Coconut ice was dusted upon the little cakes there that lay on the side of the road like stone. Sammy started to load his pockets with goodies, and when he couldn't fit nothing else into his trousers, he headed down along the road to the river. Sitting down by the river, to his surprise, he found that the river was flowing with the coolest lemonade that he had ever tasted. Feeling very contented, he fell fast asleep beside the banana breeze in the warm rays of the soft light by the banks of the lemonade stream. Sammy awoke upon the breeze that lifted him into the air and took him higher and higher in the air. Suddenly, a white horse with wings flew to Sammy's side and said, "Hop on, little one, and let's fly." Sammy jumped upon the flying horse's back and said, "I'm called Sammy. What's your name?" "I'm Peggy, the wee one's friend, and it's nice to meet you, Sammy," said the flying horse. Sammy grasped on tightly around the neck of the white horse as they drifted through the banana breeze high above the bright lights below. And Sammy said, "What's all those bright lights down there?" And in a moment, Peggy swooped down so we could have a closer look. To his excitement, Sammy saw 1,000,000 stars. They were shimmering and shining and pretty coloured seas that spun around and spiraled. And they started to move, and figures upon those little stars began to wave at Sammy and Peggy. Peggy said, "They're the twinkling seas, Sammy. They're the stars that no one can see, that shine from afar." And Sammy said to the flying horse, "Could you take me down on the ground?" And within seconds, Peggy weaved from cloud to cloud, and in a matter of seconds, they landed on the ground. And Sammy jumped off the flying horse, and there he stood, knee-high, in a thick blanket of pretty flowers that lay scattered through the forest all around. "What's this place, Peggy?" asked Sammy, in a sense of wonder. "This is the magic forest, where the only people that can stay are my friends, the wee ones. Now, I'm not going to leave you here all alone, Sammy. Don't worry. I'm just away for a few moments. When you need me, or if you want any help, just call my name and think of me if you want. So if you're in any kind of trouble, Close your eyes and think of me, and I'll be there to your rescue." And Peggy flew away into the air, and Sammy screamed, "Bye, Peggy, bye." Sammy stood there alone, and in the foreground could hear the scurrying of little footsteps breaking the silence. In that instant, Sammy saw wee ones running away into the magic forest, not to be left behind. Sammy ran after them, keeping his distance so as not to make his presence known, and as not to trample the wee ones into the ground under his feet. But the wee ones have made their way stealthily into the clearing where a little cottage sat by a silver lake. The wee ones all went inside their house, and after a few seconds, Sammy slowly crept over and made his way to the front door of the cottage. But this was no ordinary cottage. No, far from it, because it was made of chocolate and caramel. Sammy couldn't resist it any longer. First he ate the door and the windows, and then, brick by brick, he demolished his way through the cottage, eating it brick after brick. It tasted good, the window frames, the door. And then, as he stood inside, he started to eat the furniture, bit by bit. And the wee ones stood and watched and could do nothing as Sammy demolished their cottage. They all began to jump up and down and scream, "Stop, stop, stop!" But Sammy just kept eating away. He couldn't resist it because it was made of chocolate and caramel. He was in another world. The furniture tasted good. The entire contents of the cottage was made out of wafers and shortbread and caramel and chocolate, and the wee ones stood and watched the final pieces of their furniture disappear into Sammy's belly with one big burp. "Well, are you satisfied now that you've eaten our home and all we own?" the wee ones shouted. Sammy stood and didn't know what to say, until eventually he said, "I'm very sorry." And he looked at the empty surroundings around him. "I'm really sorry, for eating up your cottage. Can I help you build another one?" Sammy said. The wee ones all had a conference and whispered, and they came back and said, "Well, don't know, but okay then," the wee ones said. They gave a sigh and went and gathered up some tools. Giving a knife to Sammy, they said, "This is a magic forest. Everything here is made of chocolate and caramel. So if you start chopping down some trees for us, we'll mix up some caramel and start to rebuild our cottage." It was no time at all when Sammy had a few trees chopped up into logs, and the wee ones had made up some caramel to be used as cement. Just before you knew it, they had rebuilt the cottage by the silver lake. Sammy remained a while with the wee ones. They all enjoyed their company, sharing secrets and dreams, telling tales of the magic forest. Sammy had to go and leave the wee ones, and in a sad farewell to the wee ones, he waved and walked out into the clearing of the magic forest, where the birds were singing Sammy's favourite songs, and they rested upon his shoulders as he made his way out into the forest. He found the tranquil setting of a golden sandy beach, where the waves were crashing down one after the other upon the shore, and everywhere the feeling of a beautiful life was in harmony. Peace surrounded him in love and joy, and Sammy sat down beneath the glow of a crescent rainbow that hung from the sky, where the square sun hovered above in a cotton-covered cloudy sky that blew away before his eyes on the banana breeze, where the music fell from the sky down upon the ears as Sammy lay upon the sherbet sand, where he looked up and couldn't believe his eyes as out of the sky little tiny ice creams fell, with parachutes tied around them, and catching them one by one, Sammy licked each ice cream, one after the other, and listened as the waves lapped upon the rocks that were made of lollipops and slowly made advances towards his feet. He counted the waves, one after the other, as they spliced before his eyes. They seemed to come in series of 7. The first 6 thundered down from the distance upon the sherbet sand, while the 7th wave went whisper, 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 and trickled again back into the tide. Sammy looked at his watch and noticed that the second hand was going backwards. Then he thought of Peggy, and that instant Peggy flew back from the sky and picked little Sammy up from the beach. As they flew through the air, Sammy could see the school ground below, and the clouds wafted as Sammy and the flying horse flew through, and the first village looked almost like somewhere where he didn't want to return. But Peggy, realizing the negative feelings around him, said to Sammy, "It's time for you to go now." "Will I see you again?" Sammy asked. "Any time you need me, Sammy. Just close your eyes and think of me, and I'll be there at your side," said the flying horse. Sammy said, "I love you, Peggy," as the white-winged horse set Sammy down at his front door. In that instant he was gone into the sky. Sammy waved goodbye and went into his mother's house. And he rushed straight over to his mother, who was doing some ironing, and said, "Mummy, Mummy, Mummy, you'll never guess where I've been today." "Where's that, son?" said Sammy's mother. "I've been to the magic forest on the flying horse, and I ate the wee one's cottage, and I helped them build another one, and I was on a magic beach. I had a wonderful day, and there was ice creams coming flying down out of the sky," and he told her the whole story, and she patted his head and said, "Sammy, it sounds to me as if you've been busy daydreaming all day. I think it would be a good idea if you went to bed and have a nice little rest before you wake up." She smiled. Sammy laughed and ran upstairs to his attic bedroom. Pulling back his curtains, he looked out of the window and watched Peggy, the flying horse, slide over the tiny rooftops of his village and soar high above the clouds and out of sight. Then, tucking himself into bed, he closed his little eyes and whispered softly, "Thank you, God, for such a wonderful day." The end.